Well, yeah, we've got two computers and two phones that are dead. Oh, sorry, guys.
Nah, that's fine. All right, we are live, guys. Hello
You're
and
live.
welcome to another session of Level Up. We are streaming live today from Troia again, so it's the second time this week. We would like to thank a lot for Andre Lourenço for helping us to make this session possible. And this session is going to be really special. Why it's special? It's because of the special guest, and it's the one and only Craig Mullins. Hello, man. How are you?
Well, hello. Is that?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
We are great. We are excited to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Man, it's a pleasure on our side.
Exactly. So we have prepared a couple of questions. Also, people that wanted to see you live here have some questions to you. So I will start with the first one. I hope, first off, I hope you're having a good THU experience. I don't know if you have just arrived. We would love to be there. I hope you're having a great time. We heard it's a really inspiring community and so on. So we're crossing our fingers for this experience. So yeah, my first question would be, who inspired you, and how did it all happen that you became an artist, and what led you to this job?
Well, probably my first. Probably my mom. I had a car racing set, a model car racing set, and we put it on some sawhorses, and she painted a background of some hills, and I still remember it as actually being pretty good. I said, "Wow, Mom, I didn't know you were an artist." And she really wasn't, but she did her best, and she did quite well. Another time was we owned some paintings of a fine artist named Jim Wilcox. And you can look him up on the web. He lives in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he paints. He's made his entire career mostly painting the Grand Teton Mountains. And that was a special place to me in my youth with my family because we visited there a lot. And my mom and dad bought some of Mr. Wilcox's paintings of these mountains, and they hung in our home. So I had a
Okay.
lot of time to look at them, and I stared at them and remarked that, wow, this is just, you get up close and it's just a bunch of brush marks and palette marks and just squishes, and you get back and it looks like a mountain. It's really amazing. So that was quite a parlor trick, and for some reason I thought that I could do that, and I attempted to. So I even copied those paintings when I was a little bit older, because while they're original paintings, you have them sitting there right there. So it's nice to be able to see how they're done. Um, I remember drawing Godzilla when I was a kid. I never drew, like other monsters, but I had the same interest that everybody had. I draw spaceships with lasers coming out of it. There's never really, I don't think I was really talented at it more than anybody else. I don't think anybody saw that. Well, I don't really believe in talent, but not until I was 23 and going down the process of becoming an industrial designer that it really dawned on me that I could make a living drawing and painting things and designing things.
What has pushed you to the decision of pursuing industrial design at the time? Like, what was the moment like that where you decide, okay, this is what I want to do? You've been just saying about that sensibility you had, right?
Yeah.
And how it became a path of like study.
Oh, well, my dad was largely responsible for that. I had 2 years of general college under my belt at the Claremont colleges in California, and it was generalized study. And he and I went out to eat one day, and he had too much to drink, and he said, "You're going to get out of that school and become unemployed. You have to find a trade. And I know you're interested in cars and mechanics, and And well, I've seen you draw some things before, and that looked pretty good. So I think that industrial design is the thing you ought to be doing. Oh, okay. So what do we do now? Well, we find the best school in the world for industrial design. What's that? Well, Art Center College of Design, I heard, is pretty good. They educate all the car designers in the world. So that's how it eventually. That's how it happened. I was maybe 23 years old, and it was my dad being brutally honest that caused me to go to Art Center in the first place.
Yeah. So how do you remember that time? How much do you think the industry changed from then?
There was no industry.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you were an illustrator...
That's fantastic.
Yes? Yes, go ahead.
Jonas?
Jonas?
Huh?
I think he's cutting off. Okay, it doesn't matter.
So
How
you
do you
want
remember
to
that
talk
time?
about
So,
the early days of Art Center?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, we had some teachers at Art Center that were very hardcore, and Art Center was composed of mostly kids from their high school who were the best artists at their high school, and they all come with attitudes saying, "Oh, I'm hot stuff, man." And so it was these beginning teachers' job to get them sawed down to size so they could actually be taught something.
Mm-hmm.
So 9 o'clock first day was a guy named Ted Yunkin who taught us how to draw cubes and cones and spheres. And he went through a whole boot camp type regime of getting us to not think of ourselves like we know anything, because we actually, well, we didn't. So he would tear drawings off the wall and walk all over them and belittle people. And so it really was like boot camp. So, you know, now it's a little bit more nurturing and trying to support people. But the thing is, you know, different people are motivated by different things. Some people need to be yelled at and be ground by a nub. That really motivates them to fight back hard. Other people need to be nourished and told that they can do it. You need to build up their ego, or they just wilt like flowers. It just depends on the individual. But the Art Center, in the early days when I was there was no hand-holding at all. They took great pride in washing people out of the program as fast as they could.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure why I didn't, because I got pretty crappy grades in the beginning. I think I had 3 separate teachers tell me, you should go do something else with your life, because you're never going to amount to a hill of beans in art. And I don't know why I didn't listen to them, but I didn't.
That was good. A good choice.
Yeah, but I pick up somewhere that you also worked at some point in your career, like in the beginning, I think, of the digital era. You worked for the Ford in Detroit, right?
Yes,
for the car company.
Yes.
And then you decided, nah, it's not my thing, and I'm just switching to illustration. It was something like this happened, because I found it info somewhere. And
hang on one second.
Will, you'll pull your plug out, you put this in, plugs it in the wall.
Okay.
It works.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
We just had a problem with U.S. to European plugs.
Okay, that's fine.
My phones and computers are all dying, and nobody's going to be able to get a hold of me soon if I don't take care of that. Scott Ross, bless his soul, just came over here and gave me this. Okay, yes. When I was at Ford, I was a product design major at Art Center, and after 4 semesters, 2 years, you can apply for internships.
Mm-hmm.
And I was chosen to go be at a car design firm, which is kind of unusual for a product designer, but the things that I designed were very strange and off the wall, and they seemed to like that. So I did go off to Ford for like 6 months, I think it was, and they had, I think I talked about this in the Bobby Chu interview, that they had a dedicated mainframe computer that had painting software on it.
Yeah.
And it was used for painting out different parts of clay models, like a clay model, full-size clay model.
Mm-hmm.
They want to put glass in there, so you paint that out with something the equivalent of a rubber stamp tool and then paint what appeared to be glass that followed the form of the clay model.
Mm-hmm.
This was probably 1987, something like that.
Around
Yeah,
20.
it was probably about 1987 that this was being done. This is before Photoshop existed, before there was 24-bit color on home computers. That was coming in about 3 or 4 years, and I think the Knoll brothers wrote Photoshop 1.0 in maybe 1989.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Still before our existence.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you guys are probably 10 years 10 years away from that.
Yeah.
Right, so can you tell us a little bit more story about your beginnings with Photoshop? Because you were kind of developing the tool to make the art on it, right?
Yes, that's true. I was introduced to Photoshop by one of its creators, John Knoll, who was more the designer of Photoshop, whereas the other brother, Tom Knoll, he was more of the programmer. This is, I think, before they sold it to Adobe, and I was working at Industrial Light and Magic, and John Knoll was working there as an effects supervisor. And so he showed me some things about Photoshop and Mac 2 FX, which was the real hot rod of the time. They had a bunch of them in a room. And we were really using those Macs to composite real matte paintings with background plates and maybe do a slight color correction, but it was still traditional matte painting.
Mm-hmm.
But John, he was looking ahead and building models in a program called Swivel 3D, which is one of the very, very first 3D programs for the Mac. And he would build a ship, and then he built a hangar outside. No, I actually built that. And it was used for a show called Space Rangers. You can look Space Rangers up and actually find an entry. I think it's on Wikipedia. And all the effects were done in Swivel 3D and Electric Image and Photoshop. I did the matte paintings.
Mm-hmm.
Ty Ellingson did the designs, and John Knoll did the compositing and the animation of the ships flying around.
Awesome.
It was pretty crude, but someone like John Knoll, even with crude tools, he finds a way to make it really good and really simple, and he did. So at that time, my period at ILM was coming to a conclusion, and I did one of the last physical matte paintings at ILM right before they shut down the entire studio, and everything went digital because Yusei Wesky and Mark Sullivan, all those guys, we all knew that eventually doing this all in Photoshop was going to be the only way that it was going to be done. There's going to be no more physical matte painting. But as far as learning how to paint with it, it still wasn't in anybody's head at that point that what you really could do with the software. I mean, I remember looking at it and playing with it and being able to smudge things in 24-bit color and thinking, this is so cool, this is the future. I remember even playing around with a pen path tool and not having the slightest idea of how to get that thing to work. But now, it's second nature. I'd never seen anything like that. The Bezier path curve. So I went back to Los Angeles after being at ILM and doing that matte painting for British Petroleum commercial, and I slowly started playing with it on my own and doing things besides matte painting, which at the time was simply taking photographs and kludging them together.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew or thought to be able to paint with something as crude as that, with the little round brushes and no pressure sensitivity. How can you paint with that? Well, it turns out that the way I was taught to paint is with gouache. And gouache is a very graphic medium that you can't really blend that much. That's why you teach people to paint with it, because it teaches you much more proper and hygienic shape practice than oil paint, which you can smear all over the place. So I knew how to paint with something that you couldn't blend. And that was the important bridge, is going from gouache to Photoshop. And as I said, there's no tablets, there's no pressure sensitivity at this time. So being able to paint graphically, almost like Alberto Mielgo does now, but he does it by choice. Back then, we had to do it by necessity. And just scale things down to get the appearance of gradations. I mean, there was a smudge tool, but I didn't really want to use that too much. So yeah, I painted with a mouse, and I would have one hand over the number keys, because the number keys show you, can give you opacity if you need to. So I would just, kind of like hit the keys if I needed something more opaque, less, and then painting with a mouse. So just being very deliberate with my shapes, not really worrying about it. For a long time, I didn't like the Wacom because I couldn't control it as well as the mouse, and it started looking wispy and gestural. It didn't have the solidity and precision and deliberateness of a design shape that you could get with the mouse. Maybe because I wasn't really very good at it, but yeah, just when I tried to do anything with the pen, it would just slide all over the place. So that thing sat on my an early Wacom sat on my bench for probably a couple of years before I really said, I should really figure out how to use this thing. And eventually I did. It was probably in '99 that I started using an actual Wacom pen.
Okay.
This brings me to an interesting question that was upvoted a lot by the viewers. People are asking how you approach effective simplification of forms. Like, for example, when you paint crowds in the background, you don't overdefine them, but it's very obvious. It reads very well. So how is your approach on that kind of simplification and being very effective in that sense?
I think that there's if people see something that is simple, they might think that it is somehow imprecise. And those are two completely separate things. And that's, to a painter, you have to understand the difference between those two things. One of the things that I learned from Sid Mead is he was absolutely precise with eye levels and being precise with eye levels. No matter how loose you ever get, you have to be precise with where the eye level is and where things meet an imagined ground plane. So what Sid would do is, he worked in gouache. He would have a drawing, a drawing on paper, and then he would use straight pins or thumbtacks to register the drawing onto the paper. So because gouache is opaque, what you could do is then use transfer paper, get the drawing down on the board, paint over it opaquely, and then put the drawing back down, put the thumbtacks through it so it registered exactly where it was. Another thing he would do is take thumb pins and put it through the vanishing point into the board so you couldn't paint over it. It was a physical hole. It was so important to him that he was willing to put up with a physical hole in the board to make sure that that vanishing point was precisely where he wanted it to be. Also, that told him where the eye level is.
Awesome.
So if you look where, figures in a crowd and how those shapes stack up and how I might do that, yes, it might look simplified, but it is not loose. It's actually very controlled and very precise, even though it might be simplified. And I know when I put a shape down, if I am painting kind of, well, forgive the term, loosely, and if there are shapes that go down that I know are suggesting things that are incorrect, I get rid of them right away. And that's part of painting loosely, is knowing, okay, you put something down, how to modify that so that it looks correct. What is causing this to look bad or incorrect? What's poking holes in space? What's out of convergence? What's out of the value range? What's out of the color structure of the painting? So when you look at something, it's really important that it tells you something back. Like you do something to it, and then it tells you something back. And that dialogue going back and forth is what it's really about. So I
dialogue.
I really wanted to make sure that the difference between precision and simplification. You can have something that is nice and simple, but extremely precise. And that's how you do things like your example is crowds in the distance. Make sure your eye level is precise and your drawing is precise, and be as simple and loose as you want, but don't violate that drawing, and it will look correct.
Awesome.
Right, because you're basically trying to capture the essence of something correctly, so you probably spend a lot more time than what it ends up looking like to people, you know, because you're being very precise. So you're kind of like searching until you find the exact right shape or value or form to describe what you want. And is that something that you learn just through experience or through, building your visual library over the years? Like, how did you develop that skill exactly? Because a lot of people kind of know this, but they seem to be blind to it in their own work somehow.
Yeah.
Is this just something that comes with experience, or what do you think about that?
I think it's I've had a lot of people say things to me like, okay, that's incorrect. That could be done better, and they'll say, but it's just a sketch. And say, well, if you put it down, you're responsible for it. And, like I screw up things all the time. I can point out errors all the time in my work. I know that, but when something's wrong, it is in fact wrong, and it should be eliminated or simplified. And the fact that it's a sketch really, I mean, it's wrong. It's okay. It's a sketch, but
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter because it is in fact incorrect, and people are going to look at it and say, "Oh, the arm's bent," or that tower doesn't look round because all the windows are pasted flat on the side of it, and they don't wrap around like. And does that involve any more detail? No, it has nothing to do with detail. It has to do with using the same 3 strokes that you would use to indicate windows, but doing it properly instead of flat across.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of knowledge and precision, and simply following that, as simple and as brief as it may be. Someone who's an experienced draftsman can block out a figure very, very quickly because they understand it so well, and it's not incorrect. Even like the example of caricatured, and they're not drawing accurate shapes, but the knowledge is so good about what the forms are that they can even exaggerate it and increase its expressive quality. So it's not a matter of just, people think like, well, if I trace it, that means the drawing is going to be correct, right? No, not really. Tracing is an art just like anything else. And if you have somebody who is a good draftsman who traces something and somebody who doesn't have any idea of it, I can tell you from a mile away who the good artist was, even though they both traced it.
Yeah, but is there like any specific technique or the tool that helped you develop all those artistic skills? Because if you look at your paintings, it looks really like some kind of like old master paintings, like made with oil and stuff, and it's done on computer, right? It's done digitally. Yeah. But you had like also a lot of sketches on your website, a lot of like traditional stuff. Was any of those techniques the most useful for you, the ones that you took a lot, the most knowledge from?
Probably my experience as a matte painter helped more than anything. That really did teach me what I'm talking about with precise indication. And if I have to basically have 2 different shapes, and I only have 2 values, what's the best shape I can use? Like people who are character artists, most of them probably went through a time period when they did either storyboards or animation or perhaps comics, where they had to learn a particular way of thinking with the figure, and they got so much mileage with that they got just terrifically good at painting the figure. I'm the same way with cars. I mean, probably not a lot of people I think realize that, but I drew hundreds of thousands of cars. I can do it in my sleep, and I can draw cars as well as, say, Ian McCabe can draw a figure. It's, but I can't do it anymore. I haven't done it in a long time. But working on matte paintings really did give me a super good handle on an atmospheric perspective and how things are drawn at scale, and I also did a lot of architectural rendering when I was going through school. That's how I put myself through school. Is in the 80s, Orange County and Los Angeles going through a big building boom, and they needed people to paint these architectural, everything, interiors, exteriors. Sid Mead was doing a lot of that as well. He did, there's a ton of really beautiful work that Sid did that nobody will ever see because it was all for architectural firms. But that was, I think, where he made most of his money was from architectural rendering. And I did a lot of that as well. And it was very demanding because, you have to paint something that is very credible. And at the time I was using gouache, I didn't know anything else. So I was using Sid Mead's technique to do it. But it had to be precisely drawn. You couldn't blend. The drawing had to be dead on. And I think that discipline really did help me. Because if you can paint something precisely and do it well, you can probably figure out how to simplify that process and do it faster and not violate the important principles.
Awesome.
So we are still going back to this art center era where you have been really working on these fundamental skills, and you've been pushed by teachers to work on exactly these things you mentioned. But we all come from a totally different place. We come from internet, basically. We are not able to go to these schools, this incredible art center and all that. And all of the people that are watching us are really similar. So is there any advice you can give to people that want to improve really badly but don't have access to such an amazing teachers and so on?
Well,
Get the discipline on without.
Art center is probably, you'd have to move to Los Angeles, and it's $70,000 a semester or a year, some obscene amount. When I went there, it was $2,200 a semester.
Exactly.
I really think that to learn how to do what I do well, you really need to learn the basics of drawing and painting and perspective. There's a lot of instruction out there, but it is of a higher level nature, meaning that it's more abstracted. It's how to use a software package, and that, I think, is not nearly as important as the basic drawing and painting lessons. So where to get that? Well, I'm going to try to be doing some classes on schoolism to try to keep what I'm doing alive. It was funny when my first semester at Art Center, that first teacher I had who was teaching us cones and cubes and all that, after that semester was over, he came to me and said, you really should do something else with your life. You have no talent for this at all. And so a year and a half later, I took a semester off, and I went home and I worked on my own, and that's really where I really figured things out for myself. I went back to school and did quite well, and then I remember taking all the work that I had done and putting it in this guy's room after class was over for the day, because I had to organize it for a scholarship portfolio meeting. He came back into his room unexpectedly and started looking at all of it, and he didn't say anything. Remember, this is the guy that a year and a half ago told me go do something else.
Yeah.
Came to me and said, "This is really beautiful work," and he had like a little tear in his eye, and he said, "This reminds me of the old art center, back when illustration and industrial design were part of the same thing." It was almost like, back when man and land were one. And he gave me this little sketchbook, and he had no idea that I was the same guy that he said, "Get lost, you have no talent at all." So I mean, the people improve at a different level. Some people get better at a common rate. Some people do horribly, and then all of a sudden they get it, and they do fantastic all of a sudden. I'm still waiting for that to happen to me. I'm just going to figure it all out, and I'll be able to do it all. So back to your question is, where are you going to get this really basic information about drawing and painting and composition and anatomy? You're going to have to put it together yourself, because the stuff is out there. And I've thought a lot about this as far as schoolism goes too, because I mean, what if I'm talking about something in a lesson and I'm painting an elbow? All right, so I've been learning a lot about the elbow, but do I know enough about it to actually teach it? Well, there's a guy that I went to school with, Ray Bustos, who has done cadaver dissections. He spends his whole life teaching anatomy, and I'm going to pretend to talk about the structure of an elbow the same way he can? No, I can't. So in my lecture, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to defer this. You need to go talk to Ray or take all of his classes, because the information is so basic and so good and so important. Why should I reinvent the wheel? So I mean, in a way, I'm almost thinking the schools and classes that I'm going to be doing are going to be like, okay, you need to talk to this person, that person, take this person's class and that person's class, and that will be a pretty good approximation. You'll get a good basis there. So there's some things that I think I can teach, but some things other people have done a much better job at. Say, for instance, anatomy. So I don't know how I'm exactly going to be doing that. But I do have a structure for the class. It's going to start from essentially tracing and go from knowing absolutely nothing about what you're drawing and painting, simply copying. So we're going to go from tracing to using a grid system to copy from photographs to really know what's there. Again, not having any idea of it. And then eventually moving into construction, where you're drawing from knowledge of form as opposed to copying shapes. But training your eye to copy it and those shapes is an important foundation. And always when you're drawing and painting, it's form turning into shapes and how those two things relate. So as I said, it starts from tracing to grid to freehand drawing using verticals, horizontals, and verticals just in your mind as you get better at it, so you can do a credible image and copying of a photograph or from life. And then we start to get into the actual construction of forms. At first would be cones and cylinders and cubes and spheres, and how light works on those basic shapes quite precisely. And then you start to look for those in what you're drawing. And then the opportunity for design comes, because now you're actually, you can construct these things in your head, and you understand the photographs or what you're looking at. And you can actually start to change things and edit them and design them. And that's when it starts to get more interesting. Eventually, you're going to be able to, the ultimate goal is to be able to invent anything from any angle and any lighting, whether it has figures in it or cars or spaceships or anything, because you understand form and lighting so well and environment so well. So that is the sensei level, and I'm still working to get there. So that's kind of the progression that I'm looking at in doing my own class. Let's say, like, when you gets to anatomy, I don't know, I may just say, okay, lesson 5 and 6 in this sequence are taught by Ray. I don't have anything to do with it, but you need to go there. And when it picks up on lesson 7, you better have gone to Ray, or you're not going to understand what I'm talking about in lesson 7. So I may do it that way. I haven't decided.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yes, totally. We can't wait for the class.
Yeah.
When does it start?
Hmm?
When does the class start on Schoolism?
I don't know. I still don't even,
It's planned.
in the end, it may be that what I'm trying to do is far too ambitious, or it's not correct. I may keep it a lot more simple. I may, do a series of demonstrations of paintings, but I think what I'll do is I'll be doing these demonstration paintings, but I'll be doing them slow and talking about the concepts involved as I'm going. Because, starting from the ground up, starting from tracing and then grids, and then, that's really an ambitious thing. So that's going to take a while before I can get all that together. So maybe I'll do something more, more fun and more just like demos in the short term, just to get things rolling. And I'm not sure when I'm going to have time to do that, because I'm really busy right now. I'll probably in the new year. I'll probably do I'll do some lessons over Christmas time.
Okay.
Awesome.
Whatever you decide to do, you are going to make a lot of people very happy, whatever it is. I can tell you that. People are really excited to learn from you because, a huge amount of young aspiring artists looks up to your work. So it's going to be great to have knowledge directly from you.
It's gonna be like a Christmas gift, and no matter time when do you choose to do it.
Yeah.
So.
There's one question I wanted to ask. You've been a secret to a lot of people for a long time. We've only seen your paintings for years, and we haven't seen you teaching, or we haven't seen your sharing your workflow. But it looks like you're starting to doing that, and I was wondering why now? Why does it all happen now?
Well, that was always kind of the plan for me. Is I'm 51 now, and I always kind of thought that at 50 I would start to paint and draw more and do more teaching. It's also production schedules can be kind of brutal. I've been doing that a long time, and I think it's time to do something else.
Which is?
Which is teaching.
Teaching,
which is fine art, which is experimenting, which is like going to places like this and beautiful places and staying 5-star hotels and talk to other artists. It
awesome.
Really beating your head against the wall for 80 hours a week on crunch time on some game or movie.
Yes.
I've done that for 30 years. I just kind of had enough of it.
Does it mean that we will see you more often on online, or because you were quite because of you were busy and you are not really active online. You just post some stuff from time to time. But does it mean like you'll be more outside of your zone, as I say?
No, I don't think I'll be all over the place, all over social media and all that. I'd rather do things like this where I don't know. Social media to me it's just so big and uncontrollable. And
you are actually too big for it, so.
And also Facebook, it seems to eat up a lot of people's time. It seems to, and this is true in all kinds of different people, whether they're in artwork or others. There's so much going on all the time, and the content is always being refreshed, and it gets to where people, I think, are doing Facebook instead of doing artwork.
Exactly. Life is too short.
Yeah.
it's really great to hear how you prioritize things, and I think you're definitely doing it right. I mean, you can waste a lot of time on that. So, and actually, I kind of want to shift the subject here with that. Would you mind telling us what you enjoy doing when you're not painting, like in your free time? Because I think that's important to people as well, to kind of sometimes step back from constantly grinding and working and painting, and to just enjoy their life. Is there anything that you like to do, or that inspires you, or that rejuvenates you to get back into it in your daily life?
Well, when I lived on Maui, we had a large house and yard that I enjoyed, well, for a time keeping up, but it was almost a full-time job because things grew so fast. When I was there, I loved to sail and windsurf. Now I've kind of, I really do enjoy reading. I don't have nearly as much time to do that as I would like. And I enjoy drawing quite a bit now, just because to me, what I do for work and actually drawing on paper, completely different and separate things. So I'm really enjoying getting back into drawing and really drawing seriously and doing a lot of it. Like going through reams and reams of paper with my daughters. They're busy drawing dragons and all kinds of cool stuff, and I'm working on, as I say, the anatomy of an elbow. Beautiful thing, but you got to learn it. And I think I have the time to go back and do that kind of stuff now. So that's what I'm doing.
So you have
Andre's back.
I'm back, and I don't want to be the bad guy. Time to go.
Time's up.
Time's up, right?
Yeah.
Time to go.
Yeah, you guys have any last-minute questions or anything?
Yes.
Yeah,
can we ask you a very random but kind of level of question?
Of course.
Yeah. So, hey, Craig, if you had the
getting garbled up. Hang on. We're losing
be
connection.
either a billionaire or Godzilla, which one?
Wait a minute.
I think he's doing. Yeah, he's cutting up.
We hit like 1,000 viewers. I think that's it.
Wait, what about Godzilla?
Yeah, would you wait? I will start again. Would you rather be a billionaire or Godzilla, and why?
Oh. I think if I was Godzilla, that would presuppose I would be something different than a human being. But I think being a human being living in the bottom of the Marianas Trench would kind of suck.
Yeah.
So I would have to opt for being a human billionaire.
A human billionaire.
Okay.
If I was really a radioactive lizard and had his needs and predilections, then sure, I'd like to be Godzilla because I'd be the only one.
That's true. Yeah, because we were wondering if you choose the Godzilla, because you mentioned the Godzilla in the beginning of the session. So.
Oh yeah, I love Godzilla when I was a kid. Also,
awesome.
like Johnny Sokka's Flying Robot. You guys ever heard of that?
No.
No? Look it up. It was a late 60s, early 70s live-action Japanese kid or show, and the kid had a giant robot that he controlled with a little watch. It was really, really, really cool. And the robot design was awesome. I drew that all the time. Go look it up. Johnny Sokka and his flying robot.
Okay. Let's post it into the references, the resources page.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. Craig, thank you so much for joining today. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There is big thanks from all of the people that are watching us now. There's about 1,000 people watching us right now. So thank you so much from the Level Up community for answering a lot of our questions, and wish you good luck on THU. I hope you will enjoy your time there. So thank you so much.
Rock there, man.
Everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Take care.
Craig. Thanks, Andre.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, man. Thanks for opportunity. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.